A real storm in a teacup, as they say. Now, he's a former police officer who was himself visited by the police over allegations that he made transphobic tweets. But a High Court judge ruled the Humberside force had wrongly interfered with Harry Miller's right to freedom of expression. Now he says the way so-called hate incidents are dealt with needs to change.
My name is Harry Miller. I'm a Lincolnshire businessman, a former police officer and the founder and CEO of FairCop. Here we are at Lincoln Castle, home of the Magna Carta. Now, the Magna Carta was described by Lord Denning as the greatest constitutional document of our time. Why? Because it limited the tyranny of the barons and the king over individuals. Now, might I be so bold as to suggest that the second greatest constitutional document of our time is the judgment of the Queen representing Miller versus Humberside Police, because that re-establishes our freedom and it re-establishes our right to free speech. I'd been tweeting about the Gender Recognition Act and the proposed changes, as the government had asked us to do. And one day I was in the Tesco car park and I got a call from a police officer saying that somebody from down south was concerned about my tweets because they were hateful to trans people. I said, well, what have I said? Have I done anything that's criminal? And they said, oh no, you've not committed anything that's criminal, but we need to check your thinking. They came to my place of work. I wasn't there, so we had a telephone conversation. They said they were in possession of 30 tweets. The tweets included, Sheffield women know the difference between lads and lasses. That was one of the tweets, which the police decided was so hateful it needed immediate intervention in order to prevent a real crime happening. It's called a hate incident, but it's on a crime report, and the word crime report is in big letters. You look down the form and it has my name and address. You look further down and it says offence, trans hate, and then right down in the terms and conditions at the bottom, it's categorised as a crime non-crime. A crime non-crime. What is a crime non-crime? That, my friend, is Orwellian doublespeak.
Now, the High Court has just ruled that allegedly transphobic tweets from a former police officer were lawful, and Humberside Police interfered with his right to freedom of expression. Harry Miller from Lincolnshire challenged police guidance on hate incidents against transgender people after he was officially logged for comments he made on social media.
We need to have these debates without fear of the police, the thought police, the Gestapo and the Stasi, as Mr. Justice Knowles called them. I was very pleased. I was really pleased because I could not see that in a rational society we could have, a judge could have come up with any other judgment. There was no evidence of hate. There was an anonymous single victim whose complaint was just a rant. In fact, the judge said it was on the outer edges of rationality. And then when the judge chose to call Humberside Police the Gestapo, the Stasi and the Checker, that was quite a moment. What I want is them to face up to what they are doing and what the College of Police guidelines are causing officers to do, because this is a problem that comes all the way down from the College of Policing, through the Chief Constables, down to the police officers. The entire system needs changing.
Well, Harry Miller joins us here on Politics North today. We're also joined by Olivia Blake, Labour MP for Sheffield Hallam. Also, Sir Edward Lee, Conservative MP for Gainsborough, is in our Lincoln studio. And in our Cambridge studio is Jane Fay, who represents the campaign group Trans Media Watch. Harry Miller, are you saying police shouldn't investigate incidents of hate on social media?
The problem we have is there's no definition of hate. According to the Stonewall guidelines, hate can simply be a dislike of. Now, the police have no right whatsoever to be interfering with our freedoms simply because we dislike something. So, yeah, I think the whole thing needs throwing out.
Jane Fay, you may not have liked what Harry Miller said, but do you accept we live in a country where people don't expect to get a knock on the door from the police over things they've said on social media?
The issue is that this judgment came in two halves. One half was about heavy-handed policing, and listening to Harry's description, I'm absolutely with him. That was heavy-handed, the going round to the workplace, the use of the check your thinking. I mean, that is intolerable. But the system that he is taking on is a system that consists in two parts. It consists of hate incidents, which are by their nature fuzzy, and it consists of recording the hate incident onto the disclosure and barring system. And those two together are used both as a way of protecting minorities, and also the disclosure and barring system is used to safeguard children and women and children at work. So be very careful what you're trying to unpick here.
It's absolute nonsense, though, isn't it? Because you're going to protect children from what? What is it we're supposed to be protecting children from? As far as I can see, you're protecting children from critical thinking. You're protecting children from someone with an alternate point of view. I think that's completely irrational, absolutely stupid. And the idea that we can have a system that disbars people from potential lines of employment without having first gone through the judicial system is crazy. That is Orwellian.
Sir Edward Lee, do you support Harry Miller in his quest to change the way police investigate these issues?
Yes, of course. I mean, I personally would not have done that sort of tweet. I'm very careful not to attack people or groups of people. But the worst you can say about the tweet, depending on your point of view, is either it was silly or bad taste or wrong, or you might agree with it. But in this country, which is the home of free speech, you have to have a right to a robust point of view. And I don't think that Harry was stirring up hatred. He was just trying to make an amusing remark. As I say, you may think it's a bit tasteless, but it was not wrong, and certainly the police were very foolish to deal with them in this very heavy-handed way.
Olivia Blake, what do you think? Do you think the College of Policing guidelines need to change in the light of this incident?
Well, I have to agree that I think that we have to be very careful about this issue. I personally know many different communities who really want us to start taking hate crime much more seriously because of the consequences that it leads to. So, you know, it's okay to say, oh, well, this doesn't have a consequence, but actually the level of actual hate crimes that, or violent crime, which has a hate as a starting point, is on the increase. And I recognise that, you know, LGBT communities, our BME communities are very concerned about the way that language has an impact on our politics, but also in our public spaces, and people do have a freedom from fear and a freedom from discrimination. So I don't think we're just talking about one freedom here.
What do you say to that in response?
Well, we ban this word hate around and we talk about hate crime. There's never been a suggestion at all that I committed a crime. The judge, when he looked at the evidence, said it's not even in the foothills of crime. And yet, with respect, you are very quick to jump on the, we need to be careful because of crime. There was no crime, there was no suggestion of crime. None at all, none. But the College of Police guidelines doesn't allow for that distinction. If anybody, any third party at all, is offended in any way, it has to be recorded as a hate incident. It has to. And the logic for that is they see that there is a progression, a clear progression between a non-crime hate incident, which can simply be me saying Sheffield women know the difference between lads and lasses, and they say they have to intervene because that can lead to a crime like stabbing Stephen Lawrence at a bus stop. And we say that's absolute nonsense.
Does that, what he's just said, does that particularly offend you? Would you see that as an offence, the comment about Sheffield lads and lasses?
Well, I think that, you know, it's not about your particular case. I think that actually we have to be really careful about the wider issues here. You know, I know that there are lots of people who will make comments which do cross a line, and regularly do. You know, you don't have to be sat at home thinking, where is this language of distaste and hate coming from? All you need to do is go on social media and look at what people are saying about each other. And I think, you know, we do have to think about this much more carefully than just having a knee-jerk reaction to this case. I think that actually it can become quite a dangerous situation for people who are living with these, you know, characteristics.
No, it can't. No, it can't. Because you talk about a line. The line is the law. The line is the law. It's always been the law. And in this instance, nobody suggested at all that I have crossed the law. Neither have I come close to crossing the law. So to talk about, well, we've got to be careful. No, we don't need to be careful. We shouldn't be careful. We want more of this discussion. We want more of it, not less. And if people get offended, I don't care.
Jane Fay, aren't the police in an impossible position here? How do they judge whether something is acceptable under the auspices of freedom of speech and when it's a hate incident? Where do you draw the line?
Well, I mean, there's a couple of things here. First of all, yes, we know that Harry put together 30 tweets, and I suspect that the one being publicised is probably one of the less problematic. The issue really is about we live in a society where people are much more clever, much more cunning. People do not make overtly racist or sort of homophobic stuff nowadays. So people will throw bananas at a football match. Is a banana actually racist? Well, no, it's not, but it's the context and the intent. Is a St George flag racist? No, it's not. But because it's been colonised by people, it becomes symbolic. And the difficulty we have, and I think this is something for our parliamentarians to look at, is we live in a society in which people code their hatred. I have no idea whether Harry is motivated by hatred or not, and I'm certainly not suggesting that he's come anywhere near a crime, but I go back to the original point that the hate incident and disclosure and barring system is put in place because it was deemed by Parliament that to wait until someone had committed a crime meant that people like Ian Huntley were not on the radar, and that's quite a serious point.
Do you think that I'm on my way to committing a crime?
I have no idea. I hope and I presume you're not, Harry.
Well, yeah, because we have a presumption of innocence in this country.
Yes, we
do. And you
do.
can't simply take a third-party offence and then limit somebody's career and life chances because they might one day commit a crime. That's not how it works in this country.
It is how it works, Harry. It's how it has
it's
worked
not. And you talk about context. The context that I tweeted was the context of a debate called upon by the government to debate reformation to the GRA. That was the context.
The system we have in this country includes the capturing of soft intelligence, and that was deemed important following the Ian Huntley case. Now, you may disagree with that. I'm sure you do disagree with that.
As does the High Court, actually. As did the High Court.
Sorry, well, no, the High Court doesn't disagree with that.
Yeah, no, the High Court called the homicide police the Gestapo, the Stasi and the Checker. They disagree.
They disagreed with the policing, but the DBS system is still in place, the hate incident system is still in place.
And that's what we're going for next.
Yes, so you didn't win those points, and I hope that members of Parliament will look at the implication of your case on child safeguarding, safeguarding of women and so on, because it's a much bigger issue than you.
I'll let Harry Miller have the last word in a moment, but what lessons will the government learn from this, Sir Edward Lee?
Well, if I can make an old-fashioned comment, there's far too much disagreeable comment on social media, and I think it'd be much better if we just put our own point of view forward. It may be boring. Certainly my tweets are very boring, although regularly people abuse me when I do go on social media. I don't mind. I literally turn the other cheek. So let's put our own point of view forward, and let's not worry about other people, their gender, or what gender they choose, or their sexuality, or their race, or anything else. And let's just get on with our own life and treat everybody well and respect people. I know it's a very boring, old-fashioned comment, but it's how most sensible people want to proceed.
Do you agree with that?
I think that's an absolute cop-out, in all honesty, because sex matters. Human sex matters, and all of my tweets were in the context of trying to remove the long-established definition of what a woman is, which is an adult human female. And the attempts to criminalise that definition, you lost. You tried and you lost. You employed the police, and we absolutely kicked their asses. Can I use the word asses?
You just did. Look, we're going to have to... You've got us into a huge debate. Well, I think we're going to have to come back and do this again some other time, but we're going to have to leave it there. Jane Fay, thank you very much for joining us today. And Harry Miller, thank you for joining us on Politics North.